What are family dinners like at your house? At my house, I've always encouraged lively debate and discussion. Even when the kids were young, we would talk about their experiences, put them into a larger social context, and see what those experiences meant spiritually. My goal was always to make the kids think. Today, my kids are almost all adults, so some of the topics have changed, and of course, their experience and insight have changed too. After all, they're millennials. And so our dinner discussions now have the added benefit of two different points of view from one generation to another. I had the idea of slapping down a microphone in the middle of the kitchen table to record some of these dinner discussions. So I'm inviting you into dinner. Take a seat and enjoy.
I was just saying, men are never told you can't. Like, it is expected of you to devote all of yourself to the child and the children and raising the children. And
the child.
and the men, it's just so much easier for them to accept the fact that they're never told to be something.
Well, I mean, I guess men are always told they have to provide for their family.
I mean, I think that's like a huge, sometimes that can be a huge stressor. I don't know, Marcus, like when you were growing up, does it like kind of stress you out? Like, I've got to provide this lifestyle?
That has never stressed me out. I wouldn't use the word stress to describe the way I felt about it.
Do you feel anything about it?
I don't feel anything. I've got the emotional range of a teaspoon.
I knew you were going to say that.
Hey,
I knew you were going to say
Weasley.
We watched it the other day, and when it came to that part, we just like looked at each other.
We went to the store. We went to the store at the mall, and it's like an entire store. It's like the fandom section of Hot Topic, but the whole store.
I love Hot Topic.
Is it in the Chandler Mall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it right by the escalators?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a cool store. They had the Rick and Morty lava lamp.
Yeah, I've been there.
I bought this Harry Potter pillow.
To take to college.
It
He has a
cool.
platform 9 3/4 pillow for school. Yeah, I'm just saying, I think for some guys, I think it can be a little bit of an overwhelming thing. I mean, it's just like we were talking about how expensive it is to live. Well,
so super expensive.
right. So for a guy, like knowing that you have to do all that, that can be a stressful thing.
So, Monroe, do you feel that in that discussion in the classroom, boys have it better than?
I think they have it better in the sense that every single boy in there was completely okay with the fact that they would have to provide, and they just didn't think about it twice.
But you or some of the girls might think, well, what if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah. I think almost all of them thought, yeah. It was like, what if I want a career?
Well, it's a lot easier to feel like you're making an impact on the world when you go out in the world than it is when you're at home cleaning up poop.
But do you think that that's a result of our society's stigmas? Because I don't feel like, I mean, like it used to be a totally expressed sentiment, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, because, right? I mean, the most influence that you can have on on the world is by shaping the future generations. So, I mean, that, I don't even think that, have you ever even heard that?
No.
Yeah, I've heard that saying, but...
I mean, I don't think that... I think some people may have the opinion that moms get a bad rap, but I don't think that moms get that bad of a rap. They think, a lot of people... I don't know how to word this.
I don't think moms get a bad rap. I feel like there's very few people who are actively against women staying at home. I feel like there are people actively against women having to stay at home, like
Right.
not having the option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
I feel like
with
there
that.
are very few people who are actually like.
I don't think people say, women shouldn't stay home, but I think they make it seem like if you stay home, exactly, you're not having as big of an impact on the world, or you're not contributing as much as somebody else.
Do you think it is more of that where, in other words, where it's contribution Or do you think it's more what you are getting out of life
I think it's
as far as the pressures go? That you know, voices that would say things to you. What is it more? Is it more you're not going to be able to contribute as much, or is it don't you want
More for yourself.
more
It's
for
don't,
yourself?
I think it's more don't you want more for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something Mom brought up last week too, is like, well, do you care more about the kids or do you care more about yourself? Because if you cared more about the kids, it wouldn't be, I mean, I think everything points to the fact that having a parent at home is best. But
It's just
Right, and to Monroe's point, she's like, I'm not sure that I want to have to do.
yeah,
it's more just the
The expectation.
the part of me that doesn't want to be told what to do, really.
yeah. Because like even like with a boy, even if you're told you have to provide for your family, there are like millions of ways you can do that and choose
Yeah.
what you have more options with how you're gonna do that. Like you
And-
could become an engineer, or
Right.
you could be, I don't know, a financial planner,
And
or whatever.
With boys, ambition is encouraged and invested in. With women, a lot of the times, don't be too ambitious, is what they say.
Okay, but what do you mean by ambitious? Are you talking about ambitious for a career?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to be ambitious. I know a lot of ambitious women that don't have careers.
Okay.
I agree.
Like they are ambitious for their families and very ambitious with their kids.
Very competitive
Very
within
competitive
the.
and yeah. So, but you're talking about careers.
Yeah.
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 So I guess what's a good way to integrate the two? Because I feel like it's like I was saying to my class, I don't think that there's a black and white to the issue. I think there's a lot of gray area in between. And as far as education goes, I feel like there's very few things that you get to take with you in this life, and one of them, we get to take with us our knowledge. So I feel like the church is really, pro-education, especially for women.
I agree with them.
So yeah, we want to gain knowledge. So that being said, do I think that you can? Do I think you can be a therapist and a mom? Yes. Do I think that you can be an author and a mom? Yes. Do I think you can, do both? Yes, but something does have to give a little, right? But how do we then find that spot, or what's the correct way to talk to girls and young women where they don't feel oppressed? Like they don't feel like, okay, well, yeah, you get to be a mom and all the boys get to do whatever they want. Like what's an appropriate way? Because I also feel like everyone at this table has a testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we do know that the doctrine of the church is the doctrine of the family, and that we are sent to earth in a family, that we live in families, that we came to earth to create a family, and that the basic unit in heaven is the family. And I feel like of all the titles that we could use, we call Heavenly Father, Father. We know that in heaven he's not an attorney or a dentist or an engineer. He's acting in his role as a father. So we know that we came to earth to learn to be parents. And so how do we uphold the ideal principle and yet not make girls and young women in this generation feel like, obviously I'm your mom and I love you guys and I want what's best for you, but I also want you to know, I don't know, what's the best way to discuss it, and so that girls don't feel like that.
I feel like even in today's lesson, it's just painted as impossible. Like, to have both a career that you feel satisfied in and to be a mom.
Did you say impossible?
Yeah. I don't know exactly what the perfect solution is to this whole problem, but I just don't want to be told that to have a career and to be a successful mom is impossible.
Wait, I want to add one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said that Heavenly Father's not an attorney or a dentist or a engineer, but I kind of disagree. He's a creator. He works with the laws of the universe.
Well, that
Knowledge is important. Understanding those things is important.
right, but right now he is acting as a creator, yes, and so yeah, all of that's what I'm saying. Knowledge is important, and so yeah, he brought that knowledge with him, but he is really acting as a parent with that knowledge.
I guess.
Well, then why can't I act as a parent with more knowledge?
You can't.
You can.
I think the best way to talk about it is to not talk about it. Like, why do we have to have discussions on, like, in the family is one thing, but why do there have to be church topics on your career? Like, why does that need to be?
Well, it's because what do you think that, because that's obviously going to be a part of your reality as an adult, though, right? I mean, so if you're, especially, you know, if we're talking about a youth lesson like today, do you not talk about motherhood?
I'm not saying don't talk about motherhood. I'm saying why do we have to keep talking about the problem with motherhood and careers?
Because it's a problem. You don't
It's
think
a
it should be
problem?
discussed?
I don't know. Like, why does there have to be a lesson in church about motherhood versus careers? Why can't we talk about motherhood and how important it is, and talk about knowledge and how important it is, and be done? Like, why does there have to be that discussion? Also, for a lot of people, it's just not a choice. Like, every single person that we know, all of our friends that are couples, and like every single one of our friends has kids now too, the wife has to work. They would not be able to make ends meet without the wife working.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and then it brings on the guilt thing. Like, okay, well, if I don't work, we won't be able to pay our bills. But if I do work, I know that I'm having to give up that thing I learned about in my young woman's lesson. My kid is now hurting because I have to work. Right?
So it is a problem. See,
I
would
guess
say,
I don't know. I'm not a mom, so I haven't had that experience. So I guess I don't know if it is a problem, but I feel like maybe talking about it perpetuates it. It's like with the body issues for girls, like I feel like the best way to stop talking about, like to stop having body issues is to stop talking about body issues. Like, talk about like, oh, this is how you keep your body healthy. I'm not saying don't talk about that, but instead of talking to girls about like the negative aspects of their bodies, or how their body is just a sexual object and boys are all gonna look at your body as a sexual object, just stop talking like that, and then that won't be a thing. You know what I mean? Like, why do you have to talk about that?
How can not talking about that make it not a thing?
I feel like talking about it makes it a thing.
But outside of church, obviously, it's a thing.
And if you don't talk about how having a career is,
You won't
I
feel
don't know.
guilty.
You won't feel
So
guilty.
it's about guilt. Which
yeah.
I understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
We
a
don't
guilt
want to
issue.
teach people by guilt tripping.
I
No,
agree,
you
yeah.
don't. You don't.
And-
But I do think that that's what it comes down to. If it was what you're saying, is that
Yeah, that is what I'm
it's a
saying.
guilt issue.
That is what I'm saying.
It's like, okay, if you're going to talk about this and bring this up, then you're going to make me feel guilty. And,
But I think unnecessarily
unnecessarily
so.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that guilt can be a positive thing, but it's a lot different for girls than it is for, like, guilt is like a huge
Yes,
part
it's a
of
driver.
my
And
psyche.
And all women.
And all women, I think it's a huge part of our psyche.
Mhm.
And for the most part, it's negative.
Oh, absolutely.
And so yeah, that is what I'm saying.
I mean,
that it causes guilt. That's not good.
Do you guys remember having a lesson like the chewed gum?
Oh, I had that lesson.
No, you two, the boys.
The boys?
Have you ever had a lesson, anything remotely close to that?
I think it was a chewed broccoli. We usually go with chewed broccoli. But, no, I don't
No,
think we
but
ever
they
had
get
it like
hammered for
that.
other things.
Yeah, I agree.
We get plenty
I
hammered.
agree. I'm not saying that it's not.
And the reason we get hammered, I would say, even
Actually,
more,
I think that's
is
not
because.
correct anymore. We don't say
because-
we get hammered
Oh yeah, you
anymore.
can't say that.
Can't
It'd be
say
something
that.
else today.
We get wicked hammered.
Hammered now means something different.
Yeah.
than
So
it
the reason we get a harsh treatment oftentimes is because we don't feel as much guilt, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So we get taught that way a little bit more, maybe because we're not. It's not as automatic. I don't feel guilty as automatic about something
Yeah.
as maybe my wife would.
Well, it's my first go-to.
You first go to.
Yeah, I feel guilty about
Absolutely.
like literally everything.
Yep.
Do you think that so in the church then where you are given moral instruction, do you think that is used
Wait, I rephrase the
to
question.
guilt you into doing what's right?
I think if it's used to guilt you, it's often.
I mean, like the chewing gum thing is like.
Well, that's a for
That's
sure.
a
That-
point.
mean,
But
come on.
I will say I think most of that is by women. I've never felt guilty
absolutely.
by a man.
Probably
It's always
because-
the young woman's leader
because
or
they
the,
know.
Because they know it'll
Because
work.
they know, yeah.
But you weren't given that lesson, were you?
I never got the chewing gum lesson. I got the tape lesson, but that was actually at school at Greenfield Junior High. They
Yeah, I
took
was
two
gonna
pieces of
say.
tape and stuck them together and said every time you have sex with someone, it's like sticking your tape, and then you become less sticky.
Oh, interesting.
Eh?
Because I feel like both of you have had exceptionally good young women's
I
leaders.
agree. I agree.
And I don't think that either of you ever had the. Did you have the gum lesson? No.
But I do think that even with exceptionally good leaders, I definitely heard on multiple occasions the modesty thing and how
Yes.
I am partially responsible for how young men think and how
I
if
actually think that comes from the young men's leaders that say that.
I don't remember. I have no idea, but I definitely remember thinking, okay, if I wear these short shorts, I might be a little bit edgy because I might be making boys think bad things, even though I don't think my thighs are really that attractive. But I don't know.
Seminary teachers for sure have that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
That
feel like
whole
that might have come
complex.
They're
from
on
you
that
more
whole
from
thing?
seminary. Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, it's a lot easier to.
Because I kind of feel like too in our home, I feel like I don't think we kind of, for either of you, guilted
Well-
you about your bodies.
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think so
Do
at
you
all.
think so?
You mean like dressing modestly?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so at all. Like not even a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Which is part of why we're not judgmental towards other people in general. It's just the way that we were raised is not typical, especially in Chandler, Gilbert, Arizona,
Yeah.
within the Mormon community.
It's like when I was driving in the car that time and I had all my mates in the car and I said, and they were talking about somebody, you were there, and saying what they were wearing. And I said, do you think it's worse to talk about somebody wearing short shorts or to wear short shorts?
No.
And they had no idea what the answer was. And I said, well,
Definitely.
if you don't know what the answer is, that's a problem.
The four.
Because it's much worse to be talking about somebody and alienating them about what they're wearing rather than the fact that they're wearing shorts. So, yeah.
I think that's the easiest way to teach, right? It's just kind of like water runs downhill, and it's easier. Anything that you can measure easily,
You can make
Is-
someone feel guilty
you
about.
can. It's easier to teach toward that. It's not better to teach toward that, but it's easier to.
You mean just having a standard of like black and white?
Well, where everything's out there, I mean, if you're talking about how far down on the shoulder your shirt needs to be, that's an easy thing
teach, right? Oh, it needs to be down this low, or this is too low or it's too high. Whereas the concept of modesty, the principle of modesty, really is what ought to be taught. It's what's behind that. What's the meaning of that? And what does modesty really mean? How is it a strength and how is it a power? And there's a lot of ways to be immodest. You can be very flamboyant and very out there with your ritzy car or the way you're dressed, as far as
Well, a lot of Mormon
lots
women with
of
the
lots
big
of jewelry
hair.
everywhere, and
Yeah.
But
that's not modest.
But do you feel like you've ever had a lesson? Like, have you ever had a lesson on modesty in church?
Not that I can remember, no.
I've had a modesty lesson
Every
so
year.
many times.
More than
More
once a
than
year.
once a year, yeah. And it gives more leeway for boys.
I don't know about that.
I think so for sure.
Leeway for what? To not be responsible, you mean?
Yeah,
I don't know about
Responsible for their own thoughts.
yeah. What do you
That
mean
is
you don't
what
know
you're
about that?
saying.
You always talk
that. No,
about that.
I don't think it. I think it has very little impact on boys and a tremendous impact on
I
girls.
disagree.
I don't think they tell boys, hey, it's partially the girl's fault if you think naughty thoughts about her because she's wearing a skimpy dress. I think that's quite a stretch. I think they tell girls that, and I think that girls believe that. And I don't think that boy felt like, oh, well, if I think bad thoughts about her, it's okay because it's her fault. You know what I mean? Girls are told that, but I don't think that boys think that at all.
I know, Marcus, have you ever thought that?
No.
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't-
think so either.
I don't think boys
Well,
even
here-
think about that kind of
No,
stuff.
they don't think like, oh, it's her fault.
No.
No, they don't think that at all. But that doesn't mean that they don't.
Judge her and maybe not want to hang out with her.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that doesn't mean that they don't have bad thoughts,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, I'm sorry, but if a boy has bad thoughts because he sees a girl's thighs, I don't know.
I know. But you're saying if a
That's called
boy
being a boy.
sees a girl
Thighs, a girl in shorts.
Toes. I mean, serious.
Listen,
That ankle, though.
If
Earlobes.
a 15-year-old listen, if a 15-year-old teacher,
A 15-year-old teacher.
Like
oh,
a-
like
okay, right.
teacher's
deacon,
quorum.
teacher,
Right,
priest,
yeah.
sees a woman in an immodest dress, he doesn't think, oh, that's not my fault that I'm thinking like that.
Well, he does.
You think he thinks it's not his fault?
No, he thinks it is his fault.
Yeah, I think so too.
I do too.
He doesn't think, boy, that is her fault
I don't
for
even think
wearing
that-
something immodest.
I don't even think that he thinks about fault, though.
I mean,
I don't
there might be
either. I
a
don't
few
even
boys
think
that
the
think
fault-
that.
Again,
but very
I don't
few.
think that boys have the guilt thing as much. And
I
so,
don't think
yeah,
they
I don't
think
think they're
about the fault,
thinking
they're like,
whose
oh,
fault it
whoa.
is at all. I think they're thinking,
they're
wow,
not. They're thinking,
looks
wow,
pretty
she
good.
looks
she
really
looks
hot.
great.
That's what
Yes.
he's thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think the fault thing even
No, it
crosses their mind.
I don't either.
doesn't. Patriarchy. It's everywhere.
That patriarchy.
I do think that the guilt thing is a problem for girls. But that's what I'm saying. How can we address things and teach correct principles?
You just teach the correct principles. Like,
Right.
motherhood is important. Here's why motherhood is so great. Furthering your education is important. Here's why furthering your education is so great. Oh, look, you can use education as a mother.
Right, but that's still not addressing the elephant in the room, which is just like Monroe said, well, guys can pursue whatever career they want. And the girls are just sitting there and thinking, okay, yeah, motherhood's great and I can use my education as a mom, but what if I want to be something else?
But I feel like that's not the church's place to make it's a personal, individual decision, and different couples and families will have completely different things that work for them. So you teach them correct principles and they govern themselves. You talk about what's important in your family. It's important to have an influence on your kid. It's important to be there for your kid. But it's also important for you to further your education. It's important for you to be a contributing member of society. And then when you're at the point where you're like, and your kids are the most important thing. And then you're at a point where you're like, okay, I could take this really great job, but I will barely be able to see my kids. but I know motherhood is the most important thing, so maybe I'll not. Or for some people, maybe it's, we really need this money right now, and that's the best thing I can do for my kid is be able to make sure that, we have what we need.
But do you think that then, so you're saying in young women's now, you're saying that are the young women leaders usually telling you that you need to be a stay-at-home
I
mom?
never had that ever. I don't even think we really
So when you say
talked
why,
about stuff
well,
like
that's what I'm
that.
saying. So what do you mean? Why talk about it?
I guess I just mean, why do we need to talk about careers and motherhood as being like a mutually exclusive thing? Like, why do we even need to go there?
I just feel like it's an issue that women and girls are going to face.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like there's more pressure on women now than ever. I do feel like we're getting farther and farther away from girls seeing themselves as being a mom. But it's hard for me to deny that, I mean, it's very clear in the proclamation that it is primarily the mom's duty to raise and rear the children unless there are other circumstances that arise. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a black and white thing, like women can never work, but I do think that that is the best scenario. And I just want to be able to express that where girls feel like, oh, okay, yeah, that is the best scenario without also offending them. Like, sure, you might want to be a teacher forever, but like, I don't want to.
Well, then I think you teach it as, like, you talk about why being a mom for you is so great and how it's been such a blessing, and you talk about how you do what's best for your family no matter what, and for each family that means something different. And if you have a close relationship with the Lord and you make sure he's part of your decisions, then you're going to make the right decision for yourself. Because that's the truth.
But do you teach the family proclamation?
Of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like even in the family proclamation, it says that too.
Yeah, it does.
There's
disclaimers, like if there's something that comes up, like.
Well, it does not. It doesn't say. It doesn't even say the word "stay-at-home mom."
So
No, I think it says your primary role
Is to nourish
Is
or
Well,
nurture.
that's
raise and
understandable.
nourish or something like that. Yeah.
That's understandable, but it's not taught in like a positive way. It's
the
taught.
proclamation?
No,
Oh.
not the proclamation. Being a mother.
You've not taught it in a positive way?
I mean, I've never felt like they're trying to get me excited to be a mom. They're just telling me how to do it.
Really?
Like, I obviously think that motherhood is, and once I become a mother, it'll be part of who I am, and mostly who I am, and it'll change me, but I think that
Does
I'm
it
not
mostly
told
just sound like it's just like some self-sacrificing thing
yeah,
you're
mostly
stuck
people
doing?
are just like, this is the hardest thing you'll ever do, and you're making such a dedication, and it's basically you're
There's
just
poop
gonna,
everywhere.
You're just gonna slave away, and they're not gonna appreciate anything. But motherhood is a beautiful thing, and I should be excited for it. But I'm just felt like I'm gonna be put in prison.
Wonderful.
Maybe that's my fault.
You've had some prime motivators, it sounds like.
Well, I feel like mom likes being a mom.
Yeah, I feel like I love it. But
Yeah, I feel like-
I will say that, when you started junior high, I did start working. So maybe that's had a different effect on you. And when you were in junior high, I was still home all day, every day.
Cinnamon toast.
Yep.
I still got cinnamon toast.
Rice with milk and cinnamon
Oh,
and
that was-
sugar.
that was good.
Dang, that was a good time.
Yeah. I know. So it's interesting because when you look back on your own life, would you have rather gone to kids' care at Mesquite Elementary, or would you have rather come home to
I
cinnamon
mean, kids'
toast?
care looked pretty fun sometimes.
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah,
like, the place to be.
VIK, very important kids look really fun. No, I think that, but I don't know. I feel like we both want to at least mostly be a stay-at-home mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I've always wanted to be a
But-
stay-at-home mom.
I've also always wanted a career that won't stop me from doing that.
Yeah, me too. Hey, if I could stop working tomorrow, I would.
Marcus,
I would cook
just
dinner.
invent something.
I would cook
got any
wonderful
ideas?
dinners every day.
There's this thing.
Our house would be spotless.
Come on.
You know
Yum.
you'd be watching Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. Okay, but when we first got married, remember I made dinner every single night. Remember that?
Yeah.
So you didn't have to.
And now I make dinner.
Yeah, you do.
And we have pasta
All the time.
Oh.
Well, we don't have this
was
kind
good.
of
No, this
pasta.
is like a step up.
We have like ground beef.
It's the same every time.
It's the same every time. It's good.
Ground beef and pasta.
It's your go-to.
Sounds
Yeah.
very Italian.
It is very Italian. Yeah.
We get
It's
prego
ragu. Yeah, prego.
or yeah,
It's pasta sauce.
and then rotini.
Chef Boyardee.
Ew, no
Throw in-
Chef Boyardee.
Throw in some
No
ground
Chef
beef.
That's too low.
Got yourself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No
Shane and
Chef
Tucker
Boyardee.
loved Chef Boyardee.
Hamburger
Ugh.
ham.
Thinking about that makes me hamburger helper. You mean hamburger?
it's got a
hand
hand on the.
You called it hamburger hand? That's
Gross.
the grossest.
That is a brand, but what it is it's the knockoffs where the guy's
Ew.
hand got into the grinder along
Yuck.
with a hamburger. The nice thing is about that is it's a little cheaper.
Ew.
You might get a Band-Aid.
No,
in there.
human
Everyone-
meat is a delicacy.
Yuck. No, it's
You
not.
just gotta make sure you can't do it medium rare. You need to make sure
It'll,
it cooks all the way through.
Yeah, it's like pork.
Exactly.
this is taking quite the turn.